We thank you for being here. Thank you for being cooperative. You know, we live in a very safe country compared to some parts of the world. We take a lot of things for granted. We take for granted a lot of the networks that we have and the opportunities that we have to be educated and to learn. We sometimes take for granted of the many family hours of dedication of all the parents and grandparents and your network of people, of whoever your family is or however it is made up. Sometimes we take that for granted, and today we say thank you. But there's one gentleman today that is with us on the stage that is a faculty member that had been called away to active duty, and he's with us today, and he has just returned home from active duty. Returned yesterday. He's in the Air National Guard. He is in the faculty and faculty chair of the Industrial Services Division, and he teaches automotive technology. He has a degree from Jones, a Bachelor's of Science degree from Delta State, and a Master's degree from Delta State University as well. But yet he chose to go serve his country, and he was called to duty, and he is home yesterday. He's on the stage with us. If you would, help me thank my good friend, Mr. Barry Bradshaw. Please stand. As you know, we came in, students, we were led in prayer by Dr. Dwight Smith, who is a lifetime friend of mine. I've known him since I was a teenager. He served as the minister, a pastor at West Ellisville Baptist Church, and he's also the father of Mr. Bruce Smith, who is the artistic director here at the college. Dr. Smith, thank you for being with us today. We thank you for your prayer and your words and your wisdom always. Let's give Dr. Smith a nice round of applause. I want to introduce to you some of our friends that are on the stage today. Now, this is a network of support that helps the college stay focused, running smoothly, and it takes a community, a network of folks to do so. And I want to pause and recognize some of these folks. As you know, there are a lot of police officers here to assist and to provide safety and make sure that you're getting to where you are. And one of those gentlemen that made that day happen is the sheriff of Jones County and my good friend, Alex. Alex Hodge is with us today. Thank you for being with us, Sheriff Hodge. Appreciate you being here. We also have on stage with us today two folks that make things happen as far as the degrees and the conferring of degrees. We have Vice President of Enrollment Management, Mr. Rick Hamilton, and we have Casey Minix, who is also, she's our registrar here. Thank you guys for being with us and all that you do. Thank you. And so the next folks, if you don't mind, if I'll recognize you, you stand and remain standing. And Mr. David Scruggs is the supervisor for the beat that has this area here where Jones is. He's an incredible supporter of the college. Thank you for your support. Mr. Wayne Myrick, a friend of ours, a longtime friend, a lifetime alum member of the Alumni Association. Thank you for being with us today. One of our board members who represents Clark County, longtime educator, Miss Carolyn Smith, is with us today. Michael Bradshaw. Michael Bradshaw is in charge of all facilities to here, and he is responsible for making sure those air conditioners come on and come off at the right time. So I promise you, he'll have it cooled off here shortly. Behind me, we have Dr. Mike Cole, who is part of grants and research and institutional effectiveness. Miss Ashley Hill, who's Dean of E-Learning. I think that's Amanda McLeod, who is also over Enrollment Management, Assistant VP. Jennifer Griffiths, who's the head of the Workforce Training College. We have Julie Atwood, who is Assistant VP of Instructional Affairs. Mr. Rod Talbert, who's Dean of Career and Technical Education here at the college. So let's give these good folks a nice round of applause. You may be seated. To my far right is one of my longtime colleagues, is Vice President of Student Affairs, Ms. Gwen McGee. If you would stand and remain standing. Vice President and our Executive Director of our foundation, Mr. Charlie Garrettson. He will take check, cash, money order, PayPal, Venmo, anything if you want to contribute toward that big facility. Vice President of Finance and Business Operations, that's Mr. Rick Youngblood. Vice President of Instruction is Candace Weaver. And Dr. Jason Deadwilder, who is our Dean of Academics and Liberal Arts. Now, these three fine folks to my right that are here, they are my bosses of the executive committee that manage the Board of Trustees. And to my right, Mr. Mike Evans, who is from Wayne County, representing Wayne County. And 50 years ago, it was that you graduated from Jones. Is that correct? Right. He is our Secretary and Treasurer. To his left is Miss Ann Tucker. Miss Ann Tucker, those of you that are in the state retirement system, that are retired teachers, retired state agency workers, retired college professors, you know, when you turn in your retirement papers and so they look at this to see who has the longest amount of service, you can look to the top of the list at number 1. There sits Miss Ann Tucker. She has 58 years of teaching here in the state of Mississippi. Let's give Ann a round of applause. Longtime teacher at Northeast Jones, and many of you that went to Northeast Jones, you are her students, and she will remember you. And to my right is my boss and the chairman of our board of trustees representing Smith County is Chairman David Garner. Of course, I want to come here. I come to our speaker. You've met Barry and you've met Dr. Smith. Finney Ruffin is our Vice President of Marketing. Mr. Jim Wally, Vice President of External Affairs. We have Dr. Sam Jones, who's Assistant to the President. And last on the row down the years, Mr. Tyler Rouse. And you know, you got to be impressed with a guy who didn't know he was going to have to stand on stage until just about 10 minutes ago. He is Vice President of the Student Government Association. He is standing in for our president who couldn't make the second term or the second ceremony. So thank you for being with us today. Let's give these folks a nice round of applause. Today is a special day in that we have one of Jones County's own here today with us. You know, Jones is a family. We believe in family. We believe in creating a support system around a student to be successful. And that's what it takes. And we can't take that for granted at all. So thank you all for being here. And so in reflection of that, we thought it would only be fitting that we would have someone from our local family here that has gone on and done incredible, wonderful things. Students, today, it's a great day for you because this is someone that's very close to your generation. It's had extraordinary success in life, is very focused in life, has very strong set beliefs and values, and has extraordinary goals and has achieved great goals. And he's just right here from Sandersville, Mississippi. And it's our 42nd state auditor, Mr. Shad White. Shad, as you know, as I said, is the 42nd state auditor. And he's originally from Sandersville, Mississippi. And those of you who live in Sandersville, the population is 731. That's not bad. Shad was raised by his father. Father is an oil field pumper, and his mom, who was at the earlier ceremony, her name is Emily, was my babysitter when I was young, of course, and she's a school teacher. And so prior to becoming auditor, Shad served as public policy director for Lieutenant Governor, he was then Lieutenant Governor Phil Bryant in 2011, later become our great governor. Shad later practiced law in the private sector, served as a special prosecutor in Rankin County, and served as the director of the Mississippi Justice Institute. And at the Mississippi Justice Institute, he filed and led cases against public officials when they violated Mississippi's open government and ethics laws. Shad holds a Bachelor of Arts degrees in economics and political science from the University of Mississippi, where he was a Truman Scholar. He studied as a Rhodes Scholar at the University of Oxford, in Oxford, England, and earning a master's degree in economic and social history. He also taught as an adjunct professor at the University of Mississippi and earned a certificate of forensic accounting. And you know, it's amazing to me that there are not many people I know around here that actually graduated from Harvard Law School. That's pretty impressive. He also has a certificate of forensic accounting from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. On July the 6th, 2018, Governor Phil Bryant announced his appointment to Shad to be the state auditor, and Shad will run unopposed this November of 2019. and will retain his position as the state auditor. Today, Shad and his wife, Rena, and his daughter, Zara, live in Rankin County. And Rena and Zara couldn't be here because Zara is just 8 weeks old. They are both faithful members of the St. Richard Church. Now, students, the significance of today and the significance of this speech and the significance of having him to meet you. One day, you will vote for him or have the opportunity to vote for him on a national stage. It is right here. He is the right man for the right job, for the right future. It's very rare you get to meet a young man with so much promise and so much hope. Well, it has the ability to unify and to lead, and he does things right. You've heard about Teddy Roosevelt. You studied about Teddy Roosevelt, of how he came up through his political career of always doing the right thing. No matter what it took, he always did the right thing. It was the right way. Students, you will see over the next few decades, next 10, 20, maybe 30 years, 40, maybe 50, you will get to experience what is called the Shad way. It is the right way. He's going to do things right. I've never had so much hope and promise in a person as today, as one of our state leaders today. Please welcome to address you, Mr. Shad White.
President Smith, faculty, graduates, family, and friends, it is an honor to be here with you today to speak to these graduates on a day of important accomplishment. I have to also say that it's incredibly nerve-wracking because both my 9th and 11th grade English teachers are in the audience right now, Ms. Tucker. So I can guarantee you there's some sentences in here that end in prepositions. You're just going to have to grin and bear it for a little while, I think. Graduates, I want to talk to you today about two concepts that I wish someone had talked to me about 10 or 12 years ago when I was about your age. And these two concepts are independence and ownership. Independence and ownership. So let me tell you what I mean. For some time now, you have had independence. You're all adults. You've had the ability to set your own schedule. You drive yourself where you need to go. Maybe you live outside the home. Maybe you have a job that you use to make a little extra money that you spend in the way you see fit. Independence is important, obviously, for learning to become an adult. But what I want to argue to you today is that independence is not enough if you want to have a meaningful and fulfilling career in life. In order to have meaning, we need, I think, another concept, and that concept is ownership. So what I mean by ownership is this notion that you own your own life, that you yourself have to set a goal that you will pursue, that nobody's going to set the goal for you, that you yourself are going to have to work to achieve that goal. No one is going to do the work on your behalf, that you yourself are going to have to make sacrifices in order to get to that goal. No one is going to make the sacrifices for you on your behalf. So maybe think about it this way. Independence is that thing that lets you sleep through your alarm clock in the morning if you would like to. But ownership is that feeling that you don't even want to sleep through the alarm clock because you know that sleeping through the alarm clock is going to get in the way of you achieving your goal. So to tell you why these concepts are important to me, I want to back up a little bit and tell you about my story. So I grew up not far from here, as President Smith said. I grew up in a little town called Sandersville in the north part of Jones County. After I graduated from high school, I finished up. I went to Oxford, Mississippi. I got my degree from Ole Miss. I graduated from there. I moved to Washington, D.C. I worked in a think tank for about a year. I finished up there. I moved to England. I studied for a master's degree. And as I was finishing my studies in England, I realized that I certainly was an independent person. So I was living in a foreign country at the time. I was, by my own choice, eating very, very bad British food at the moment. I was choosing where I wanted to travel. I was choosing who I wanted to hang out with. I was choosing whether I wanted to go to class or not. But I had not embraced this idea that I had ownership over my own life. I had not embraced this idea that if anybody was going to make sacrifices to get to a goal, for me, I was going to have to be the one to make those sacrifices. I had not embraced the idea that I needed to set a goal for myself. I didn't know what I was doing. What I knew, though, was that I had a passion for helping people and I had a passion for public service. I knew that I'd come by that idea, that passion, honestly, and I knew that I wanted to use my brain and whatever talent God may have given me to go back home to Mississippi and make it a better place. The thing that inspired me to have that value, that desire for public service, was my dad. So growing up in a small town, my dad was an oil field pumper, and if you have ever worked in the oil field or you know somebody who's worked in the oil field, you know it's a dirty job. And at least one night a week when I was growing up, my dad would come in and he would wash the dirt and the oil off of his face and out of his hair. He would run and he would grab a bite to eat, and then he would immediately leave right back out the house again and go across the street to the city hall. And the reason he did that was because for most of my life, he served as an alderman in the little town that I grew up in. Today, he's still an oil field pumper, and he serves as mayor of our little town. He believes he is president of the United States. He thinks he's very important. He has an old beat-up Chevy truck he calls Air Force One. We're just not sure what to do with him anymore. But he told me or taught me very early that public service was a responsibility of every single person. It didn't matter who you were or what your job responsibilities or family responsibilities were, that everybody had some responsibility to do something good for their community or for their state. What I also knew was that not all service was created equal. So I had several other friends who embarked on careers where they also wanted to be in public service. And many of them, within a short amount of time, realized that their ability to get things done depended not just on their willingness to work hard, but also on, unfortunately, the ability of their bosses to have the political capital to make change happen. So I'll give you an example. I had a good friend who was with me in England who was interested in education policy. So he got a degree. He made some connections. He decided to join a city school district in a big city on the East Coast. Packed up his bags, he left and moved out there. Within a few short months, though, he had lost his job. The reason he lost his job was that his boss, the mayor, had lost re-election. And so I didn't want to end up like my friend, working on good ideas but not having the ability to implement them. That friend, his story, was a light bulb moment for me. If I wanted to have as big of an impact in public policy as possible, I knew that I wanted to either work for a candidate that I believed in or I wanted to run for office myself. That's the best way, I thought, to ensure that I could end up seeing change actually happen. So I made the decision to come home. I made the decision to find a candidate, someone out there that I believed in and that I wanted to work for. And that person, the first person I found, was a guy named Alan Nunnally. So Alan Nunnally at the time was running for Congress in North Mississippi. And Alan, unfortunately, died very tragically a few years ago. But when he was alive, he was a courageous man who cared a great deal for this state. I decided I wanted to go and work for him and help him win this competitive race in Congress. So I called him up. Had never met him before in my entire life. He did not know me from Adam. And I said, Alan, I'm a Mississippian. I'm living in England. Here's a little bit about my background. I want to come work for you. I'm willing to move to Tupelo. And, oh, by the way, I'm willing to work on your campaign for free. That was the clincher, I think. So he said, well, it's hard to turn down free. And I got the job. So I finished up my coursework in England. I packed up my bags. And I moved to Tupelo. And I jumped on Alan's campaign. And I'll tell you right now, as a first job in politics, it was not easy. So I sort of naively assumed when I showed up that they would put me in charge of something very important because, after all, I was a really neat guy and I had a master's degree and a lot of other fancy stuff. And I found out really quickly that that's not how the real world works. I think my first job or first task when I got onto the campaign was sweeping up the floor after last night's campaign event. The campaign did end up paying me a little bit of money, but it was not a lot, so I couldn't afford to pay a whole lot of rent. So I found somebody in town who would rent out a portion of their house for me, and I paid them the rent that I could, but to make up the difference, I agreed to tend the landlord's garden while I was working on the campaign. I survived mostly on cans of vegetables and beans, which actually was better food than what I was eating in England, so that's not really a complaint on my part. And I was putting in a lot of hours, 7 days a week. The thing I noticed was that every single week that went by, the campaign gave me more responsibilities. So if I swept the floor really well at the campaign event, they let me organize the next campaign event. If my campaign event that I organized went really well, they let me handle the press at the next campaign event. If I handled the press, the newspapers and the newscasters really well, they let me write the press releases for the next campaign event. So by the end of this campaign, I was writing basically everything that the campaign produced: website content, policy papers, social media posts, anything you can name. And then this kind of big break happened for me. So in the final week of the campaign, Alan and his campaign manager and I were traveling on a bus tour around the district. We were going from small town to small town campaigning on this bus. And each new day, we would bring a new leader on to campaign with us. One day, that new leader was Lieutenant Governor Phil Bryant. Now, I did not know Lieutenant Governor Bryant. I'd never met him before, but I heard him having a conversation at the front of the bus with Alan. And I heard him say, "Who is it that's writing all of the content for the campaign? I've been reading the emails and the social media blasts and all that stuff, and I really like it." And Alan pointed to the back of the bus and said, "It's that nerd back there in the back." And that was me, in case you haven't figured that out, me typing back in the back of the bus furiously. By the end of that day's bus tour, Governor Bryant and I had struck up a friendship and a conversation. And we realized that we actually had a good bit more in common than we first thought. He was from a small town. I'm from a small town. His dad was a diesel mechanic. My dad was an oil field pumper. He had a passion for politics that affected working people, so the folks who go to work, raise their family, pay their taxes, play by the rules every day, and I had that same passion. He had served as state auditor, and I had a passion, too, for law enforcement and stopping corruption. And so as we closed out that day, he offered me a job. And I'll tell you that the first job I think he offered me because he was probably a little bit desperate. His policy director had just left, and I was a warm body standing in front of him. But I took the job, and I served as his policy director. And then a few months later, I served as deputy campaign manager on his first campaign. And then a few years later, I served as campaign manager on his second campaign for governor. And then last year, fast forward a bit, he appointed me state auditor. Now, the reason I tell you that is you can probably see that it was only when I decided what my goal was and that I was going to make sacrifices to get to that goal that this kind of lucky break happened, that the door opened. So I want to challenge you today. I want to challenge you to think about this question. What would it mean for you to take ownership over your own life? What sort of goal do you want to set for yourself now that this goal has been accomplished? How hard are you willing to work to get there? What sacrifices are you willing to make? These are tough questions, but I will tell you that I have found that in dedicating myself to the goal, that is both the thing that opens the doors, that makes those lucky circumstances happen, but it is also the thing that gives me a greater sense of fulfillment than just the joy I get from being an independent person who can do what I want. So if I might, as you're thinking about your future and what's next, I want to tell you 3 things that I learned and wish I had been told 10 or 12 years ago about taking ownership over your own life. The first is this: the greatest asset that you can give yourself, especially when you start your first job, is to refuse to say, "That's not my job." No matter how menial or how small or how hard the first task is that they give you, I challenge you to take on that task. You think back about my first task on the campaign, sweeping the floor after a campaign event. It was doing that thing well that gave my bosses the confidence to let me do the big task well. So challenge yourself, wipe "that's not my job" out of your vocabulary. Thing number 2, I wish I had known. A lot of you are trying to determine what this big goal is, right? You're trying to figure out what the next thing is. And as you're doing that, I would tell you that think about what gives you joy in this life and how that practically might relate to earning a living every day. But perhaps the more important thing I think I can say is that no matter what goal you pick, it ain't going to be perfect. I can promise you that. It's not going to be perfect. In fact, you may end up not ever getting there. You may end up in a spot that you never expected to get. I can promise you, I never would have suspected I would be state auditor 10 years ago. But the very act of setting a goal and just getting to work, just picking something and getting to work, that is going to guarantee that the place where you end up is better than you would have otherwise. Third thing, while I think that taking ownership of your life and your career is really important, and having a fulfilling career is really important, I want to tell you that it's not everything. So my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my 8-week-old baby, those are things that give me power and purpose too. And I will tell you that if you want to have that same sense of power and purpose, you're going to have to work just as hard in your personal life as you do in your professional life. That's going to require effort too. So in closing, I want to say thank you. Thank you for letting me share some thoughts with you. And thank you for letting me share on a day where you are celebrating an incredibly important accomplishment. My hope for all of these graduates, for all of you here today, is that you can find a way to take ownership of your life. You can find whatever your calling is. And for what it's worth, I hope that that calling will keep you right here in Mississippi. God bless you and good luck. Congrats.
I'd like to introduce the Chairman Garner, to Chairman David Garner, to come address the group. So, Chairman Garner.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, it is my delight and pleasure to congratulate you, our graduates, on the success and accomplishments for what you enjoy today. I know that you did not arrive at this place without the love, support, and interest, encouragement of family and friends. Would you join with me today in expressing our appreciation to all of your families who have worked so diligently and sacrificed to make this day a purpose for you? Thank you. Jones is what it is today because we have one of the finest faculties that can be assembled from Harvard or from the most extreme reaches of our West Coast. I appreciate their selfless and dedicated efforts to make the lives of these young people and our students the very best that it can be. I'd ask our faculty to stand, and would you please join with me in expressing our appreciation and recognition for their excellence. Thank you. Thank you so much. Graduates, I leave you with these words. There's no better advice that I, or quite frankly anyone, can give you than this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce Vice President Candace Weaver to present the class. Ms. Weaver.
Will the graduates please rise? Dr. Smith, these students have met the requirements as set forth by the faculty, the administration, Board of Trustees, and our Southern Association of Schools and Colleges Commission on Colleges. I recommend that they receive the appropriate Associate of Arts degree, Associate of Applied Science degree, and/or the technical or career certificate.
Thank you, Vice President Weaver. As we're making our way down and getting ready to start, I want to recognize a gentleman here that's in his street clothes. It's Chief Bruce Russell, who also provided, thank you, Chief, for being with us today, and also providing the police to help with us today's event. I didn't see you there. I would have recognized you earlier, but thank you for being with us today. You know, it is a special day. We're about to go into the actual calling out the names. And, you know, these students are given a name. I have a cousin that graduated. Her name is Sydney Christine Brady, and she was given a name. And those of you that are here today that are parents or grandparents, you may be that namesake of whom they were named after. It has been a time-honored tradition, as long as I can remember here, is that during this ceremony, when we call these names out, that you remain quiet. Now, I know that that goes completely against your nature, that the exuberance that you feel in your heart, you feel that you must show your love by screaming, "Woo, that's my girl, that's my boy." Let's do this. Show your love by remaining quiet during the ceremony. And at the end, we will stay here all afternoon. We'll stay here to midnight and scream, shout, and dance, whatever you want to do. We will do it then. And we will let the Lord know that Jones graduated today. But during the ceremony, while we calling the names, let's remain quiet and reverent to show this time under tradition. You know, Jones has been around since 1911. That's pretty good for a small college in Ellisville, Mississippi that's educated several 100,000 people that are all across the world today. So ladies and gentlemen, help me make this date a great day. And so graduates, ladies and gentlemen, graduates, please come forward. First two rows remain standing. The rest of you would remain sitting.
Tyler Keith Rouse. Melissa Lou Mackey. Angel Raquel McGee. Billy Rakeef McGee. Jose Jacoby McGee. Rosita Juliana Mariani. Taylor Elizabeth Manning. Rashawn James Marcel Sr. Taylor Ann Martin. Sandra Diane Massey. Michaela Brooke Matthews. Mark H. Mayers. Denise Lachelle McAdoo. David M. McCoy. Camilla Nicole McCraw. Sean Nichols McCraw. Chandrika Shayana McCrae. Shajura Kiera Nieja McCrae. Patricia Lynette McCullum. Liliana Elizabeth McDonald. Megan Erica McDermott. Madison Nichelle McGoy. Madison Kiera McGee. Jakira Dominique McGilberry. Eartha Marie McGowan. Matthew Robert McKee. Casey Bryant McKissick. Dolores Denise McLean. Caitlin Danielle McLean. Levi Harold McLean. Alenia Mariah McLaughlin. Taylor Donann Meadows. Christopher Ryan Mendoza. Lucas Jordan Middleton. Danny Cash Miller. Felicia Reese Miller. Haley Jordan Miller. Starlin Lachey Miller. Abby K. Mills. Oleg Eli Mills. Olivia Faith Mills. Christian Sheree Millwood. William A. Mitchell. Davanzel Moncrief. Alvin James Moody. Kisam Moody. Salvador Antonio Morales. Dalton Morgan. Destiny Cheyenne Morgan. Tanisha Nicole Morgan. Hannah Faith Morris. Elizabeth K. Morrison. Stephen Mullis. Corinne Mariah Munson. Austin Gilbert Murillo. Mitchell Scott Murphy. Shelby Diane Murray. Shannon Lindsay Morell. Chelsea Laurel Musgrove. Jamie Lanice Myrick. Paige Renee Myrick. Caitlin Elizabeth Neighbors. Perlana Sherelle Nikase. Madison Nicole Newsom. Matthew Newsom. Madison Brooke Nicholson. Angelica Danielle Nix. Justin Trent Norris. Catherine Ruth Norris. Shemaiah Manche Norwood. Alexandria Danielle Noel. Ryan Alexander Noel. Zachary Dwayne Odom. Tiffany Morgan Ogle. Miguel Angel Ordonez Benilla. Morgan Olivia Otis. Shakira Owens. Shamika Lasha Paisley. Shadana Brianne Page. Addison Kirk Parker. Shakaya Destiny Parker. Daniel R. Patterson. Nicole Elizabeth Pearson. Sean Peoples. Rachel Grace Perkins. Christopher Caden Perry. Christy Marche Peel. Kara Brooke Phillips. Perry Renee Phillips. Lakin Noel Pickering. Ariel Terrell Pickett. McKenna Lee Pippin. Taylor Victoria Pippin. Adrian Marie Pittman. Erin McKenzie Pollitt. Christian Nicole Potts. Victoria Amber Sue Ponders. Tasha Aranique. Shakayla Mariah Poe. Abigail Faith Powell. Tyra DeJuan Prentice. Michelle Denise Preston. Takira Shani Price. Stacy L. Prigden. Haley Hodges. Keija Nicole Pruitt. Diamond Demelia Rankin. Kimberly Christine Ray. Brianna Noel Reed. Dawn Marie Roulette. Amber N. Rhodes. Jenna Lynn Ryder. Syria Lane Riles. Heather Danette Roberts. Jordan Diane Roberts. Nikias Trey Robertson. Reed Hill Robertson. Ivy Ree Robinson. Joseph Zachary Robinson. Clifton Chapman Rogers. Lakin Grace Rogers. Lanika Simone Rogers. Malcolm Jerome Rucker. Kendallin Carol Russell. Kanaja E. Russell. Katab Basel Salah. Janiyah Koshe Sampson. Madison Page Seeger. Anthony Maurice Shanks, Jr. Charlie Marie Shadows. Ebony Sheree Shelby. Lexi Amanda Shows. Courtney Alyssa Sims. Tia Slocum. Brooklyn Lee Smith. Haley Nicole Smith. James Michael Smith II. LaPrecious Shade Smith. Michaela Zanique Smith. Tyrus Cameron Smith. Zachary Paul Smith. Jonah Sterling. Lauren Elise Stevens. Amanda Stevenson. Kashay Katil Stevenson. Shakira Ashanti Stewart. Allie Nicole Strickland. Victoria Lauren Strickland. Emily Elizabeth Stringer. Jakayla Venice Stringer. Wyatt Abram Strite. Joshua Kent Sumrall. Rashunda Antavia Sumrall. Wesley Roscoe Sumrall. Danielle Trinae Sutton. Abigail Elise Swindle. Jamarian Antonius Tanner. Melissa Ann Taylor. Evan Altry Terry. Austin Ray Thompson. David Alonzo Thornton. Jolie Carol Thrasher. Grace Patricia Tony. Carlton Demond Travis. Shamarlis Tevion Trotter. William Mills Tullis. Mequandra Latranise Dallenshay Twilley. Taryn Nichelle Tyree. Grant Earl Valverde. Vakisha Bernardo. Josie Kathleen Vick. Haley Madison Vineyard. Sawyer Keith Wadley. Lauren Tyler Waits. Jasmine Atis Walker. Michaela Ivy Wallace. Byron Christopher Wally. Dawson Jean Lee Wally. Caitlin Elizabeth Wally. Kimberly Wally. Michaela Brianne Wally. Norma Bailey Walter. Caleb Gerald Walters. Lakin Michelle Walters. Logan Braden Walters. Tanner Brett Walters. Olivia Day Ward. Kyra Wardell. Glenn Waters. Gary Weathersby. Zakiah Weathersby. Hannah Madison Weems. Lakin Leanne Welburn. Ariel Westgate. Adrian Lachey White. Jamarcus White. Braxton Clay Witt. Samuel Rylan Wilkerson. Aaron Dale Williams. Caitlin Alyssa Williams. Heather Renee Williams. Michelle Denise Williams. Michael Jerome Williams, Jr. Landon Williams. Janisha Jarez Wilson. Tyrus Lee Wilson. Ashley Nicole Wyndham. Remy Anissa Winston. Allison Nicole Wise. Haley Ray Workman. Elantra Sonia Woolard. Kelsey Sheree Woolard. Kayla Elizabeth Yates. Gabby Grace Yelverton. Andronita Danielle Young. Sierra Rhiannon Young. Aliyah McCann. Zakiria Page.
Well, you know, I think you could do much better than that. Let me hear you one more time. Let's go. No, that's better. That sounds good. You know, I still think you got a little bit, you got to let that love out. Let's do it one more time. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, let's go. That's much better. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would remain seated where you are. So graduates, faculty, you may be seated. And I want to commend our faculty for an outstanding school year. Thank you so much. Stage, yes, you may be seated as well. You know, it's been a great year. We've had a year of firsts. It was pretty unique. We had our first in history. You know, we do a lot of things. Number one, you can see these banners here that represent some of the sports accomplishments. But this year we had the first of its kind. We had a number one ranking, or we were selected as the best program in journalism in the nation for two-year colleges under the leadership of Ms. Kelly Atwood. Ms. Kelly Atwood, are you here? Would you please stand and let us recognize you? Look at that. Great writers. So, students stand, and I'm going to share with you some of my favorite writings. Throughout history, we've heard some favorite writings, and you've learned this from your faculty. Some of you have studied philosophy, and had Dr. Bishop's philosophy class, and you may have covered it in history, you may have covered it in some other courses, but we've all heard of Aristotle. Aristotle says, he said, it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. We all learned about Helen Keller when we were young. And you know, it's very profound that someone who had no concept of light or sound was able to come up and say, the best and most beautiful things in the world can't be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. You know, Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Treasure Island, he said, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant. Something more to the nature maybe of your generation would be something that I've heard my children when they were young of SpongeBob SquarePants, who I thought was a great philosopher. One of the things he said was, Gary, go away. Don't you see that I'm trying to forget you? I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Of course, we know the song, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. And those of you who are Gen Xers and parents or grandparents of these students, you remember Fred Flintstone, who had the cartoon? You know, he just had a way of embodying the joy that you feel when you experience something great. He had the phrase called, do y'all know it? Yabba dabba doo. Y'all remember that? Everybody in the stands probably do. But you know, of all the great philosophers and all the things that we've read and learned, there's one great philosopher, this guy who is filled with love, joy, and happiness, and wanted to have a good time wherever he went. He embodied everything we feel at this moment. And I think it's only fitting that we share it with you. Patrick, you ready? And that's none other than the great James Brown.
Wow! I feel
Congratulations to you.